Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. An absolute pleasure to have you both here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Maybe you could just kick off with a brief introduction to this incredible film, Taurus. For people who don't know anything about it, can you give us a brief synopsis?
Taurus is about the last days of a musician who's tortured, and it instead of just a straight descent, it's about the last days of what life is all about. So sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's miserable, sometimes it's loving, sometimes it's isolated, because that's what life is like. So I hope it captures all of those things.
I understand there's kind of a semi-autobiographical element to it. There's also maybe some of Kurt Cobain's story melded in, and then of course with your star Machine Gun Kelly, some of his own life sort of melds into the character.
Sure.
So can you tell us a bit about that mix?
Sure. The Kurt Cobain thing, I think I made a mistake, because I was 24 years old when Kurt Cobain died. Tore a hole in my heart, just like, you know, the millions of people my age who experienced that. And I never got over it. And so the idea of this musician, this great tortured musician who really wasn't right for the world, losing that person before their time is done was heartbreaking, and it's still going on. So this generation, whether it's Lil Peep or whether it's Mac Miller or whether it's Juice WRLD, it's still a tragedy that's ongoing. And I thought that was an important story to tell, but to not make a music documentary, but to make a creative film, because that's kind of my bag. That's where I go. And then Machine Gun Kelly, I could have cast an actor, but why? What's the point? Like, I love the gray area between fact and fiction, and so casting Colson was the most important part of the movie, because he also, like, he is that character. He is that person, and very easily could have gone in the route of these people who are gone too soon, but chose to experience it through performance rather through reality. So yeah, that's the thing.
Maybe Maddie, you can tell us a bit about your character of Lana and what appealed to you about playing her. And it's an interesting role because at some point there's so much friction and tension between her and Cole, but then at other times she's a sister, she's a mother, and there's obviously a great deal of love and affection that goes beyond, you know, just a job. So how did you see that come?
I think I have been a Lana before in part of my life, and taken care of a man, and I think it's interesting to play someone or to be someone that is giving so much of yourself to this thing, and that can seem like a selfless act, but really it's for you, because if you're paying so much attention to this person, you don't have to look at any of your own stuff, which is just so much harder. So I think that was just an interesting thing for me to explore.
And it obviously kind of touches on things that are so relevant right now. I actually just watched a documentary, a BBC3 documentary about kind of the new 21 Club, you know, the Lil Peep and Tentacion, Juice WRLD. So this is obviously something that's of this time, this is happening now, and you kind of obviously dramatize it but make it very real, kind of the loneliness, the sort of disjointedness between the performance and then the real life behind.
Right.
What do you think your film wants to say about that? Do we put blame just at the door of these rock stars, or do we have culpability, and the music industry have culpability to look after these people?
It's hard. Like, I can only speak for myself. I think the industry is responsible. I think Instagram is responsible. I think, you know, modern society has a responsibility of building these people up to a point where they can't possibly succeed, or, you know, building them up only just to tear them down 5 minutes later. I think that's a cruelty that the society has that is despicable. So I do want to expose that. But I also, like, the movie to me is really about the creative process and all the things that get in the way. I'm not comparing Colson to Mozart, but like the movie Amadeus, if you take away Salieri character, you have this great, great rock star. You have one of the greatest rock stars in the world, and what gets in the way? Well, his drinking gets in the way. His opium gets in the way. The king who's telling him how many notes he can put in an opera. His fans who want one thing and not the other. The people who are surrounding him who want him to make money. His father who gets, it's all the same thing. It's just now it's social media, it's the music industry and this and that. And it's always just what gets in the way of artists just being able to be artists. And that's the more important message in the movie for me.
And for you, Maddie, you know, Machine Gun Kelly's performance is just so authentic, and I think there is that blurring when you're watching. You don't know if you're watching a performance or if you're watching someone kind of act out their own elements of their own life. So what was it like working opposite him and kind of getting through some of those intense scenes, but then also maybe the fun ones too?
Are there fun ones? Yeah, there's a fun one.
No, we had such fun. It was really nice to watch someone experience a new kind of vulnerability. Because him, you know, this is a version of him. This is him being Colson and not being Machine Gun Kelly. And I think that's probably very scary. He was just so committed and so vulnerable. And whenever you get to work with somebody who's committed and vulnerable, it's the best. So it was lovely.
And what do you hope people will take away from watching the film? And do you see that there's an arc for the character? Or do you feel that in a way it's just a downward spiral? And, you know, is there kind of any hint of optimism to take?
Yes. The movie is not a descent. The movie is not a downward spiral. The movie is about ascension. It's about transcendence. Like I said, I think there are people who've been in this world that aren't necessarily made for this world, that the world kind of makes it really hard for them to be themselves and a success. I think I want people to understand that kind of complexity on a much more micro level. I just want people to be in the present tense. There's nothing worse than watching a movie and being like, I know what's about to happen. Or like, oh, I don't believe that. I'm still caught up on that thing that I saw in the first 10 minutes. What this movie does, and what I think good cinema does, is it just keeps you rolling in the present tense and just gets you deeper and deeper and deeper into a world. So that 5 days from now, you might still remember and you might be like, oh my God, why am I still singing that song? Or like, oh my God, remember when he yelled at Maddie, but then she hugged him afterwards? Like, that type of stuff is meaningful. So that, I just hope it sticks with them and they talk about it maybe a couple times after. I don't have grand ambitions to change the world. I just want people to love the movie.
I did my job already. I don't.
You did.
I want people to take whatever they want from it. I took what I wanted from it. When I watched it as a total fan, which is such a rare experience. When you watch yourself, you're usually like, ugh. But I just watched it and enjoyed it, and it was just a beautiful movie.
No, I thought it was very moving. And I guess in some ways it can be a warning, but in other ways it can be kind of help people reach out to that person in their lives that they think is lonely, or try and stop, you know, what could be.
Yeah, I think Colson is referred to as like a movie that he's made for people who need it, who need to see it, like who need a vessel toward getting out of where they are and maybe into something else, or to understand understand themselves better, to love themselves a little bit more.
Well, I think I'm out of time, but it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you both.
Thank you.
Enjoy your premiere tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.